Okay. Yeah, thanks, Greg, and thanks to all the organizers of this event. I'm going to give a talk on the enduring legacy of how Collegiate Taiko has helped empower the Taiko universe. They're a very special symbiotic relationship. So the community that I'm focusing on for most of this presentation is the Taiko community here in the United States. That began in the late 1960s and early 70s with three highly influential groups: San Francisco Taiko Dojo, Hinata Taiko, and San Jose Taiko, which all began in the state of California. And ever since, Taiko has spread throughout the rest of the country, now with a total of over 500 Taiko groups. There are Buddhist Taiko groups, professional groups, recreation groups, and everything in between and beyond those categories. But the sector I think is really interesting, that has grown considerably during the past 30 years, is the Collegiate Taiko community, which their beginnings were largely thanks to the wisdom and knowledge that were passed down by veteran Taiko players, and in turn helped accelerate the growth and sustainability of the greater Taiko community. And so the process and outcome of empowerment here refer to the expansion and increased support within each of these two Taiko communities. It's largely driven by the cross-cultural exchange of teachings, values, and experienced Taiko students make up their mutually beneficial symbiotic relationship. So if there's anything I'm hoping that everyone takes away from this talk, it's basically a diagram. But first, I think it would help to talk a little bit more about how Collegiate Taiko actually began. So Collegiate Taiko began with the founding of three groups, again, Kyoto Taiko, Stanford Taiko, and Jodaiko Taiko. It's no coincidence that they're located very close to the first three Taiko groups.
Hey, Josh, I'm sorry. Can I stop you for a second? We're getting some comments from the audience, and I'm kind of hearing it too. We're getting an audio issue, a bit of a latency or kind of a hiccuping. Do you think maybe could we maybe just let's try like just resetting the maybe your audio even if that's possible.
I switched microphones. Does that help? Or
yes. Oh, this is much better. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Josh, I'm so sorry to do this to you, man. Could we? I think for the sake of I think your material is very, I think great stuff that, and we can cut off some time later. Could we just start from the top? Is that okay?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't want anyone to miss this. This is great. I was sorry. I was trying to figure out the audio on our end, but it seems like this is going to be better now.
Okay.
Thank you, man.
Can you hear me now?
That's a lot better. Thank you.
Is everything good?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, yes, we can start from the top. The Taiko universe. There's a symbiotic relationship, and it's been empowering the Taiko universe, and that's what Collegiate Taiko's enduring legacy is. Okay, so we'll keep going. So, the community I'm focusing on is the Taiko community here in the United States that, as you all know, and for those who are not familiar with our community, it started with San Francisco Taiko Dojo, Hinata Taiko, and San Jose Taiko. And they all began in the state of California. And ever since, Taiko has spread throughout the rest of the country, now with a total of 500 Taiko groups. I hope you can still hear me. Yes, there are Buddhist groups, professional groups, recreational groups, and everything in between and beyond those categories. But again, the sector that I think is really interesting and has grown considerably during the past 30 years is the Collegiate Taiko community. And their beginnings were largely thanks to the wisdom and knowledge that were passed down by veteran Taiko players, and in its turn has helped accelerate the growth and sustainability of the greater Taiko community. And so the process and outcome of empowerment here refer to the expansion and increased support within each of these two Taiko communities. That's largely driven by the cross-cultural exchange of teachings, values, and experienced Taiko students that make up their mutually beneficial symbiotic relationship. And so if there's anything that I'm hoping that everyone takes away from this talk, it's basically this diagram. But first, I think it would help to talk a little bit more about how Collegiate Taiko actually began. So Collegiate Taiko began with the founding of three groups, Kyoto Taiko, Stanford Taiko, and Jodaiko. It's no coincidence that they're located very, very close to the first three taiko groups in North America. Kyoto Taiko of UCLA was founded in 1990 by Mark Honda, who was a previous member of the San Jose Taiko Junior Taiko program that was led at the time by Roy and PJ, affectionately known as Frog Legs Hirabayashi. His prior taiko experience was crucial in being able to recruit, lead practices, and forge connections with other taiko members, such as Kevin Higa, who provided the space and materials to build their first taiko drums. When the group was on the verge of collapse at the time, the Nikkei Student Union president reached out to Mark to see if they'd be willing to perform at the Day of Remembrance event, which marked the 50th anniversary of when Executive Order 9066 went into effect, resulting in the wrongful incarceration of tens of thousands of Japanese Americans during World War II. With more funding and motivation on Kyoto Taiko's side, they prepared and put on a successful debut performance in Royce Hall, and is a yearly tradition that continues on to this day. This origin story I just told you is strikingly familiar for many other collegiate taiko groups. Ann Ishimaru and Valerie Mean took a taiko course at Stanford University taught by Susan Hayase, a former member of San Jose Taiko and an activist herself. This motivated the two of them to apply for a grant that made it possible to purchase their first drum. With the help of Gary Sugimoto and Nancy Ozaki of One World Taiko, they built their own drums and were used during their spring concert debut performance in White Plaza. And finally, the birth of Jodaiko at UC Irvine was made possible by Peggy Kamon, who brought with her the valuable experience of learning taiko from Tom Fukuman.
Hey, Josh.
Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt again. I think we might not be getting your slide changes. Is this true for the audience too? I think we're still on the summary empowerment, the symbiosis slide.
Okay.
And I know you have some really great pictures in here, so I just wouldn't want people to miss out. I'm really sorry about that.
Oh, we're still on the summary slide here?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And then here, right, we can go through very quickly. Right, so we have the three collegiate groups, very close to the first North American taiko groups. And I sort of went through the origin story of how Kyoto Taiko was founded. So I hope everyone caught that. Basically, it was Mark Honda was responsible for that. He had a lot of experience coming in, learning taiko from the San Jose Taiko Junior Taiko program. Kevin Higa was helpful in creating their first drums and their debut performance at the Day of Remembrance. And so, right, the origin story I just told you is very familiar. It was very similar to how Stanford Taiko was founded. It was also very similar to how Jodaiko was also founded. So Peggy Kamon already had previous taiko experience from learning from Tom Fukuman and Guardian Bu's temple. And so all the twirls and pachi tosses, that's where it came from. And then David Shwoda, the other founding member, got in touch with Victor Fukuhara, a member of Kokoro Taiko Kai, to build their first drums and put on a fantastic show at the annual UCI Rainbow Fest. So 1992 was quite a year for a collegiate taiko. And so we're on to slide 6. You can see it? Yes? If I'm not hearing anything, I think we're still good. Okay, so I'm revisiting that diagram I showed you before. And so the greater Taiko community, right, was responsible for imparting core values and philosophy, drum building, knowledge and skills, repertoire, arranged pieces, and of course, youth taiko players. And so this made the growth and sustainability of the collegiate taiko community possible. And the results show for themselves, right? So now groups are found all along the West Coast, not just in California. The groups that you've seen or will perform throughout this weekend are the ones in the purple box. But I hope that you'll at some point get to witness other collegiate groups from the central region and eastern region of the United States. So today there are now 70 groups with at least 3,000 students, of whom at some point played with the collegiate taiko group. It's amazing. And arguably, two of their greatest legacies are the Intercollegiate Taiko Invitational and the East Coast Taiko Conference gatherings, which bring together taiko players from all walks of life, practically every year. And there are consequences to this amazing growth. A good number of players have gone on to join existing groups within the greater taiko community. Some have even founded their own taiko groups. They've also composed new open source taiko pieces, and they're considered leaders of their own right, whether it's taiko or something completely different. Empowerment. Many former players from the groups on the left are now founders and members of these groups on the right, and have taken on the responsibility of not only expanding the taiko art form, but also training the next generation of young taiko players who will eventually go on and continue playing with a collegiate group. Symbiosis. Let's see here. Next slide. Okay. And so that's not all, right? Like, taiko doesn't just exist here in the United States, it's gone global. Taiko Community Alliance this past year had a census team that was led by two illustrious TCA staff members, Sarah Gilbert and Dr. Christina McGahey. And using the census data, I was able to generate a community map, which tells us that there are many of us who play with different taiko groups from different continents. And it's just astounding to see those connections that we've made, especially among collegiate taiko players. So I think the last frontier on this planet is Antarctica, and I'm looking forward to the day when a former member collegiate taiko player starts a group in Mars. It's going to be hella lit. So I hope that by now you're at least somewhat convinced that this empowering effect is largely due to the symbiotic relationship that the two communities share. But something I also want to leave you with is that even though there's still much more to learn about taiko, there's a lot that the collegiate taiko community has to offer when it comes to activism and the ways in which they can express themselves as Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, and people of color in the face of systemic racism, misogyny, and bigotry that unfortunately still pervade in today's society. Starting from the 1990s and to this day, Kyoto Taiko puts on performances as a way to challenge Japanese American stereotypes and instill a keen awareness and pride within their community. Their continued involvement in the annual Nikkei Student Union Culture Night and Manzanar Pilgrimage highlight the very fact that taiko and activism go hand in hand and are inseparable. Taiko as a form of activism goes beyond the Asian American community, where Jodaiko performed at Woman Fest back in 1994, which was held to recognize both women's struggles and successes, and to tackle issues that have caused them to be wrongly marginalized and fetishized for many, many years. Even back then and in the present, most collegiate taiko players identify themselves as women. And finally, taiko has been used as a way to drum up support for either an ethnic or Asian American studies program at universities that still, unfortunately, don't recognize how they are of any value. In fact, there was an instance where someone from Stanford University wrote an op-ed who wanted a calm debate and encouraged the members of Stanford Taiko to sit down and draft a rational argument as to why they even needed an Asian American studies major. It's the same crap all over again, just a different year. But the lesson here is don't let people like this stop you from expressing your identity and values. Don't let people like this stop you from believing that you belong. Your opinions and actions matter. Don't ever forget that. And so with that, as the wise Roy Hirabayashi once said a couple years ago, respect history. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Josh, for the presentation.
Oh yeah, should I stop sharing?
Yeah. I think if you wanted to, did you want to try to do questions? It's something we had kind of talked about. But...
Yeah. I mean, how much time do we have left? I'm sorry I went over.
No. We're doing great. This is a great festival so far. I'm going to allow people to unmute themselves and to share video again. We had locked it earlier, Josh. We just had a little incident, people trying to, kind of Zoom bomb and stuff. But anyone in the room now, you have your mics back. You have your cameras back. If anyone wants to ask Josh a question or just say hi, please feel free to do so. I loved your mad scientist symbiosis.
I try, it's, sometimes I wish people talked like that, because, sometimes there's just a jumble of words and you sort of forget, like, oh, what was the point of this slide?
So it's really well done, yeah. Josh. That was a great presentation.
Yeah, and sorry about the audio issues and video issues, but I'm glad that got cleared up.
No, you rolled with the punches really great. And I'm really glad we could see those pictures too, because you did such a great job compiling that information. I think one thing, we had talked about, Josh, but what I think is just so fascinating is like how much of the history of collegiate taiko comes from like, community groups, from Buddhist groups, right? We have the Senshin Buddhist Temple and Kinara, with kind of making those generation of young people who go and start collegiate taiko and San Jose taiko as well, right? So I think just seeing some of those pictures is like it's such a kind of blast from the past.
Yeah, I think collegiate taiko really does matter. You all have a legacy. I feel like it's just going to last for a very, very long time, and I think everyone should consider themselves as community builders. It's so tough to try to do taiko and school at the same time. Mm-hmm. So that basically makes everyone who has done collegiate taiko or still doing it pretty much badasses, Like
you heard it from the doctor.
They just rock. You rock. Remember that, okay? Like, it's very difficult, I barely limped into my 4th year,
Any collegiate taiko players out there want to stop by, share some experiences, say hi to Josh or anything?
Hello! My goodness, I haven't seen anybody in over a year now. Damn. I can't wait to see you all again.
Yeah, you were at our last live festival, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, 2019, I suppose. Jeez.
Yeah, I still remember. One of my favorite memories with Bakuhatsu Taikodan was getting to play with you guys at San Jose 1.
Yeah.
2018. That was just incredible. Yeah. One of my favorite memories was when we were playing Hanabi. And so like Tao Luhuang, she was the one behind, and we were still learning the fireworks. And I, still had trouble memorizing it, but when you had Tao in the back, just doing this and just conducting us, it really helped. And
that was a lot of fun. It's funny. We actually have an interview with Tayo later today, and he talks about one of his favorite memories being playing at San Jose Obon and having other collegiate groups rush the stage and kind of play with us. So.
Oh yeah.
Keep looking for opportunities to connect. I hope everybody as well.
Yeah, sure.
Well, thank you again, Josh, everyone. Once again,
right.
This is Josh Yoon. He's currently joining us from the Taiko Community Alliance. So, and you can thank Josh for if any of you received the Taiko Community Alliance census or seen his presentations, the beautiful kind of data analysis that he's been doing with looking at networks within Taiko community. So, thank you, Josh. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.